It's time for Drummer Nation. Adam Nussbaum has played with a virtual who's who in the jazz world, including John Abercrombie, Michael and Randy Brecker, Stan Getz, and Joe Sample. He is an in-demand educator doing clinics and master classes at such institutions as Berkeley, NYU, the New School, and numerous conservatories around the world. He's authored and produced The Art of Playing Brushes, a multi-DVD offering from Hudson Music, and has been involved in instrument design with Zildjian and Sonor. His new release as a leader is called The Leadbelly Project. Sound Synergy's percussion care lubricants and conditioners include a series of 3 products for total drum kit care and maintenance. Percussion care products in your gig bag ensures your entire kit will always look and sound its best. Check out their website at soundsynergies.net.
I absolutely love playing drums, and I couldn't imagine not having that in my life. And I really, if I could help facilitate that and have an impact on your life so that you can play drums, that means the world to me.
Drummers seeking a quick and easy way to muffle bass drums on the fly, look no further. Muffbone offers an effective way to instantly dial in your sound in just a few seconds while seated at the kit. Find out more at muffbone.com. When seated at the drums, pressure on the tailbone, lower back, and hip joints can lead to pain. Only Carmichael drum thrones are scientifically designed to relieve and prevent discomforts associated with prolonged sitting. Carmichael thrones, we got your back.
Created specifically for practice sessions, quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian are designed to respond and feel like traditional cymbals, right down to their clearly defined bell, so the drummers won't have to change the way they play. Quiet tone practice cymbals by Sabian.
Hi, this is Stanton Moore. I've been playing and teaching drums for over 30 years. My new site, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, is the perfect online drum learning platform for any level drummer to learn how to play the drums the same way I did. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you as subscribers on the site, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
Adam Nussbaum, welcome to Drummer Nation, and thank you for doing my show. We finally hook up. We've been working on this for a while.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Most welcome. It's my honor. How are you?
I'm doing okay, just dealing with Tsunami number 3.
Yeah, I've been watching that.
Yeah.
Nor'easter after nor'easter after nor'easter.
That's it. It's coming down right now as we speak. I was just out doing the snow blowing in the driveway, the suburban life.
Where do you live?
I live an hour north of Manhattan, kind of midpoint between New York City and Woodstock.
Perfect striking distance.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. I like to do a little bit of history. It's not a long show, but going back, I have some notes on you. You're from Norwalk, Connecticut, and at 12 years old, you were playing and also played bass and saxophone. Fill some of that in for us.
Well, my initial instrument that I studied was the piano. From the time I was 7 to about 12 years old. I was born in New York City up in the Inwood section, and when my parents realized I was going to be starting school, they moved up to Norwalk, Connecticut. It's just northeast of Manhattan, where I'm just straight north. Mm-hmm. And I did it for the same reason. When the kids were ready for school, it was time to get out of the city.
That's what I did in Los Angeles. When my son was ready for school, I got the hell out of Dodge.
Right, there we go. So we're all following the same template.
Yeah.
And I was always fascinated by the drums. I had a cousin who was 9 years older, and when I was, I think, 4 or 5 years old, my parents went away, and I stayed with my aunt and uncle, and my cousin had his drum set, and I watched him play, and then I just got up and put the stack of 45s on, and just monkey see, monkey do.
Isn't that something? I had a cousin who had a little family band, and we went to visit them, and they played for us. And they did weddings and gigs like that. And as soon as he got up, I sat down at his drum set instinctively, and within seconds you go, yeah, this is cool. I dig this. This is for me.
Oh, it was fantastic. And he was always an inspiration in regard to being a little bit of an early tour guide for me. Mm-hmm. I was an only child, and he was kind of a big brother for me. And when I would go up and see him, he'd always give me a little set of bongos, or he'd play some nice music for me, and it was very nice.
So Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, when you
No.
set up that stack of 45s, what might have been in there?
Oh, there would be things on there like the Everly Brothers or Little Richard, uh, the Shirelles, the Satins.
So the pop music of your day.
Well, yeah, early 60s.
Hmm.
Some of the early Motown recordings were probably in there. You know, Isley Brothers, Twist and Shout,
Right.
things like that.
Stuff we heard as kids. But you're a jazz drummer. When did that sneak into the picture?
Well, I grew up with everything that was on the radio. I
Hmm.
mean, you'd hear everything that was on the radio, and there wasn't really on popular radio much jazz. It was whatever the music of the time was. I guess I kind of fell in love with jazz when I got to be in my early teens. And I'd always heard jazz, but I really got enamored with it. My parents had a very diverse record collection, primarily classical, but they also had folk music, blues, jazz, ethnic music. They were pretty broad minded. I mean, all this artwork behind my head was done by my father.
Really, I was going to comment on
Yeah.
that. It looks Cezanne-ish a little bit.
Well, like all of us, he copped everything from all the people before him. And over a 45, 50-year period, he went through many different incarnations and different morphs of different realities and styles.
As we all do. I meant that as a compliment, though.
Absolutely.
It,
Well,
it, it,
thank
it
thank you.
looks
Yeah.
like mature
This
work.
yeah, this was I think late 50s, early 60s.
Beautiful. So
Yeah,
you, you
thank you.
you grew up with an artist in the home. Who were
Absolutely.
your first
Very grateful.
Who were your first jazz influences? Because I hear in your playing, now I'm not the first to note, a lot of Elvin Jones, a lot of Mel Lewis, but who were you listening? How did that all come in the book?
Hey, everybody out there in cyber world. This is Adam Nussbaum.
Hi, Dave DeCenzo here.
Hi, Bermuda Schwartz here.
Hey everyone, Stanton Moore here.
Hey guys, Johnson Pesta here.
Hey everybody, this is John J.R. Robinson.
Hi, Todd Zuckerman here for the Drum Center of Portsmouth. They're knowledgeable, they'll be able to help you and guide you and make the right choices for you and the music that you play.
From Wingnut to Wuhan, these chaps know what they're talking about. Highly recommended. But what do I know? I'm a drummer.
It's fascinating. I was first enamored. I think the record that really turned me around was Are You Experienced?
Really?
Jimi
Okay.
Hendrix.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I think that was 67. I was 11 years old. I was fascinated by the music. I loved the cover because there you had Jimmy, the brother from Seattle, with the two white cats from England, and there was so much happening in the world at that time in regard to the civil rights movement, Vietnam, Martin Luther King. There was so much happening. And when you're 11, 12 years old, there's a lot going on with you as well.
Mhm.
So it was a very transitional point. And what I loved about it was Mitch just didn't lay down a groove. He put down a foundation, but he was also an interactive aspect of the entire musical situation. And then what happened was about 6 months, a year later, my cousin Peter, who was my mentor at that point, he played for me Africa Brass by John Coltrane. And I heard that record and I said, wow, this guy on this Coltrane record, he sounds like Mitch Mitchell from Jimi Hendrix.
I see the connection.
And so I basically had heard the cart before the horse.
Right, yeah.
And that was just something that I loved. I loved how it felt, and I loved how he was an active participant within the music. He just wasn't a steady timekeeper and the role of the so-called metronome for the band.
Right, it was improvisational and interactive.
Right, and I love that. And so that was something that I was very taken to because I was a little bit more of a participant within the musical proceedings.
Right.
I just wasn't the drummer.
Yeah, it's a conversation.
Absolutely. There's a little bit more of an interactive process going on and reaction and response. And that whole process was something that I always liked because I think with my background, I came to the drums from music. I didn't come to music from the drums.
Well, that's a great statement. One of the best things you can say is about a drummer is that he's a musician who plays drums.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we can make a band, we can break a band.
Right.
You've heard that old story, a band is no better than its drummer.
That's right.
And the quickest way to change the sound of a band, truth be told, is change the drummer.
And that's a good thing. And I think that leads to some of the camaraderie that drummers have. In
Absolutely.
that we all know that 10 great drummers can play the same gig and all sound great. And the leader, the person putting it together, the producer, whomever, is going to like one guy better than another. And that's okay. That's okay.
It's all a matter of taste.
And the drummer's going to get blamed no matter what happens. So we all have this camaraderie together, I think.
Sure. That's why it's very necessary for drummers to be aware of the musical situation and the subject that they have to play.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that there's so much ability out there with all the materials that are available to everybody now, but people have to understand the reason you're going to get a gig and work is because you know how to get inside the music and help the music sound good.
I was watching a video of you teaching, and you were talking about the most important tool we have is our ears.
Yeah.
Not our hands, not any of this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ability to listen, especially in improvisational music, goes without saying.
Right.
My friend Jamie Haddad says his goal is to make the person on stage next to him sound a little bit better.
Absolutely. Our job is to help them feel good and sound good. That's why you're going to work. If they feel good having you there, they're going to want you there.
Sound Synergy's Percussion Care lubricants and conditioners include a series of 3 products for total drum kit care and maintenance. Pedal Lube, the only product specifically designed for bass drum, hi-hat pedals, and triggers, as well as all moving metal parts and drum hardware, safely removes grit, grime, and other contaminants while protecting against harmful friction wear. Cymbal Care restores and conditions cymbal surfaces without strippers or harmful polishes. Wear Barrier is a conditioning formula for all drum heads, rims, and even sticks. Percussion Care products in your gig bag ensures your entire kit will always look and sound its best. And I think if you had to identify the role of a drummer in any gig anywhere, it's to make the music sound good.
Yeah, and
right?
the first thing you have to do is to gain the trust of the other musicians on the bandstand.
Well, you must have done that because I'm looking at your history. You Sonny Rollins in way back in '77, Dave Liebman, John Schofield, Gil Evans, Stan Getz, Ileana Elias, Carla Bley, it goes on and on and on. How did you get your career started back then? Was it working with Sonny?
Well, I basically was subbing for Al Foster. Al was another one of my mentors. And at some point, he couldn't go out, and I think Miles had just started to come back and go out to work.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't do it. And so he gave Sonny my name, and I was very, very nervous, to say the least. I think I was 22 years old, and I'm playing with one of the icons of this music. And I think what happened was I was living in New York. I was going to City College from 1976 to 78. And I was also going out a lot because of the community at that time. There were so many places to go. And I was always frequenting jam sessions. And I had friends that would meet at these sessions and through mutual acquaintances and get a chance to get out there and sit in and have jam sessions at people's lofts and stuff like that. And so I would have friends that would have gigs with different people, and then usually they would recommend you, or a situation would come up and somebody would hear you, and that's how things started to happen. While I was going to City College, I was very fortunate. I used to play at a jam session at a place called Folk City, which is now a club directly across the street from the Blue Note in Manhattan on, 3rd and 6th Avenue, I think it is.
I forgot, it's in the Village.
Yeah. And so I don't know what the name of the place is now, but Folk City was a place where on Sunday afternoons they had a jam session, and there was a wonderful pianist there named Albert Daly, who was from Baltimore. And I got to I used to go to that jam session with a great bass player, Dennis Irwin, and we ended up playing with Albert. Albert liked us, and that was a great education because I firmly think that you're going to get better by playing with people that play better than you.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're going to stretch your capabilities, and basically they're going to kick your ass, and that's how you're going to learn. And so then you just become part of the community. People start hearing you. You start getting out there. I sat in with Dave Liebman's band, Lookout Farm, around that period, and I made a connection with Dave and Richie Byrack, Jeff Williams, the drummer, and people start hearing you around, and you start. I think somebody says, "How do you get a gig?" I say, "Well, have a gig, do a good job, and people hear you."
Keep
like
it.
anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Everybody, I think every famous drummer, good, well-known drummer can look back and say, well, this was a lucky, lucky breaks, right? It was a lucky break that so-and-so was there and heard me that night, and that led to X, Y, and Z. But you don't make a career on lucky breaks. You still
have to back it up.
You have to throw down eventually.
Right, right. And I was out there with people that were far better than me, and I'm grateful they put up with my youth and my lack of experience. I guess I had something that they liked. I was always attracted to the drummers where they had a good feel. That was always the thing that was my primary attraction.
And who would that be? Name some of those guys.
Well, some of the drummers, Mel was one of them. Elvin, Bernard Purdy, Clyde Stubblefield, Billy Higgins, Klug, Shadow Wilson, Zigaboo. Just cats where the groove got you. Al Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the time.
Regardless of genre.
Yeah, I mean, I consider myself a musical erasist.
I read that. I love that.
Yeah.
Tell us what that means.
Well, I like good music and honest music.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said to me, I'm identified as a jazz drummer, but I grew up playing in rock bands. I grew up in the youth symphony. I had a variety of experiences. I love listening to, Piatigorsky as much as Jimi Hendrix or Kenny Dorham.
So the erasist is you erase the lines.
Erase the line, because there's a common ground in good music, regardless of genre. You're going to have, first of all, the first thing people are going to hear is sound. You have to have a good sound. That's the very first thing they hear. And people are aware of how does it sound? Does it sound nice? Is it pleasing to the ear? Then you have to start to develop a feel, a groove. What happens? How's that groove feel? And then you have vocabulary. Mm-hmm. And vocabulary is put together from different things that inform you. I mean, there's codified vocabulary for the drums, such as rudiments and things like that. But in a situation such as mine, I was playing for a long time with no knowledge of any rudiments. I was just watching, listening, and playing. So I never really knew about that part of what it was. I knew that was something, but I didn't learn that first and then try to stick it in the music. The music kind of told me what to play.
Well, that's the better way.
Right. I was informed by the situations. It's like we're having a conversation now about music and the drums. I'm not just going to throw in some big words I just learned yesterday about, carburetors and fuel injections. That has nothing to do with what's going on.
Exactly. Well, let's drill down into some of those things. You mentioned sound. Describe your sound. Well, I know you've worked with Sonor to develop drums. You've worked with Zildjian to develop cymbals. Mm-hmm. You're very aware of your sound. I'm a cymbal guy. Let's start with that. Tell us about your cymbal sound.
Well, I think it's evolved over time. Mm-hmm. I'm a product of everything that I've heard. I'm a product of everything I like and everything I dislike. Because everything comes in and it comes through our filter comes through our eyes, our ears,
Mm-hmm.
and the things we like stick with us, and the things we don't like kind of drift away. And I think I grew up with listening to those master drummers. You know, the K sound was very much a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the varieties within that. You have Randy Brecker wrote a great tune once called Ting Chang, where Elvin had the ting and Tony had more of the chang.
That's
And
interesting.
I think that was a good way to specify that,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a different character between those two sounds. And I love all these drummers. I mean, I heard Tony when I was, I think, 14, 15 with the first Lifetime band.
Mm.
And that was kind of a life changing experience. When you're young and you are exposed to these situations, they have very profound impact.
Profound,
And
yes.
yeah, I mean, things that you can't deny. And so then over time, all the records I liked, listening to all the different drummers, I became aware of, cymbal sound. That, because especially in jazz music, your ride, that's your glide. That's the environment.
Not
Like
only
I
is it,
say,
it's also where most of your business is done,
right.
and it's so defining of your sound.
Hmm.
And it's so, if you have the right symbols for jazz music, it's so expressive.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm helping to create the sonic foundation
Hmm.
for the rest of the band, or the little, phrase I use. I got to have the spittle a ding working with the ickety boom of the bass, because we frame the sonic environment for a band.
Right. So you're looking for wash and stick, kind of a woody stick sound, and
I want everything.
yeah.
I want to have the support. You have to have some wash
Hmm.
because that gives the band something to sit on.
Exactly.
But you also need to have the definition of
Hmm.
the stick hitting the cymbal. So there's
Hmm.
the articulation, which
Hmm.
is necessary so everybody can hear where things are at. And I think that's very necessary for a band, particularly when you're in a big band situation. I remember, for instance, one event, I'll never forget it. I'm very fortunate. I have Mel Lewis's road cymbals that he
Wow.
used to take out on the road.
I want to hear those one day.
Okay, absolutely. And it's a 2018 14 and Istanbul K's, and of course a Swish Knocker.
Hmm.
And I remember I brought them one time on a project, and the baritone player, who's the farthest away from you on the bandstand, said, "Man, I hear that cymbal clear as a bell."
Hmm.
And this was kind of on the heavy side, this 20 from Mel. But that was very nice to hear because, they got to hear you. And there's that clarity.
Hmm.
So that was a defining thing for me, because it's not only how does the cymbal sound where you are, how is it projecting out?
Right.
That's
Now,
very important. And you need that balance, because I have heard cymbals from a distance that I find to be very nice, but then when I go to play them,
not so
it's
much.
very unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So you have to find that balance. I mean,
Right.
balance is the big word here.
For years, drummers have been seeking a quick and simple way to control bass drum muffling. Muffbone offers an effective new way to change your sound in a matter of seconds without leaving the throne. Muffbone fits between the batter head and the arms of any pedal, allowing full movement of the footboard and beater. Its positioning can be easily changed to dial in the precise sound required. Muffbone is perfect for live and studio work and is recommended by Peter Erskine, Jeff Hamilton, and Joe LaBarbera. Find out more at muffbone.com. I agree completely. Now, you were working on cymbals with Paul Francis up there?
Initially, I was working before that time,
Okay.
before Paul
Before
was
Paul?
deeply involved.
So maybe Lenny or...
Well, it was at that point, Charlie Ianese was up there, and
Yeah,
of course Lenny was there,
right.
and we kind of came up with this pre-aged, the
Oh, okay.
pre-aged king.
I remember those. Those were great.
Yeah. What happened with that? It was fascinating. I was up there one time, and they have a very high level of quality control. So things have got to meet certain criteria as far as sound and the cosmetics and everything like that. And I remember there was a K Custom, which was one of those hammered and buffed cymbals that was not lathed, that was in the recycle bin because I think it had a cosmetic issue. And I looked at it and I took it out and I played it, and it sounded very nice. It just had a cosmetic problem. And I said, hey, man, why don't we lay this down? Let's thin it down a little bit and hear what this would sound like. And they laid the top and the bottom, and it was like, hey, this baby sounds good. And we got rid of the little cosmetic error, and it was a beautiful cymbal. And that became what then was the pre-aged K, which was in the line for a while.
Yeah, isn't it interesting to work on cymbals? People don't realize that when you're working with a master cymbalsmith, you have to tell them, what hammer, how hard to hit it, what angle to hit it, how much do you hammer the bell, do you do the underside, where do you lathe it, how does it bow? There's a lot of shit to making a cymbal right.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just a piece of metal.
Yeah.
But everything within the process, the shape, how it's treated, has an effect on it. And it's been a fascinating process and learning situation for me to be involved. And what's great about being able to go up to Zildjian and to work with Paul is to become aware of what physical aspects are done in the process that affect the sonic result.
And everything affects it. It's like people don't realize one of the hardest things to tune is a drum because it's in a circle. So you're not bringing a string up to or down to pitch. You tighten one little thing, and ostensibly you're tightening everything a little bit. So you have to pull it all into focus. And with a cymbal, there are even way more variables than that.
Oh, yeah. And then at the end of the day, let's remember, it's the painter, not the brush.
Very good point.
Because it's your touch.
That's right.
And this is the thing that I've been working on. And it's how do we connect with the instrument? It's how we touch the instrument. Granted, we are striking it, but it shouldn't be you're hitting it. You want to learn how to touch it. It's like we really don't kick the bass drum.
I hate that.
I hate it too. It's not a kick drum. I'm not kicking it. I'm trying to play the instrument. It's an instrument. The cymbal is like an orchestra. You have to learn how to play it. I mean, your embouchure, how you connect with the stick and how that stick connects with the instrument is going to affect everything.
On a good cymbal, you can hit it with your thumb and you hear the piccolos and you hear the basses and you hear everything in between. And it's up to you as a musician to bring that out.
Yeah, it's like, if you have a brush, are you going to use the brush this way or are you going to use it this way? And all the worlds in between.
Precisely.
Now, it's a lifetime journey trying to get this thing together.
It really is. And how about your drum sound? What do you base that on? First of all, you play sonars, right?
Yeah, I've been playing sonar since 1987.
I have too. Those are my go-to drums. I have sonars.
Yeah, they're fantastic instrument. Fantastic instrument. I'm very pleased. I've been able to work with them at the company as well. I knew the man Karl-Heinz Menzel probably for about almost 10 years before I got hooked up with the company. And I'm very grateful to be with them. And they make an incredible instrument.
Hi, Todd Zuckerman here. I'm talking about the Carmichael Throne. I've been using it for 3 years, and I'm a firm believer in it, being that I was a sufferer of lower back pain and some chronic back issues. And I always try to sit up and have really good posture so the tailbone sits right in the crevice. It really is a life changer. So yeah, if you have any fatigue, any physical problems, you really owe it to yourself to check it out. Danny, thank you not only for saving my butt, but for saving my back as well.
How do you describe your drum sound? What are you looking for there? And what, does it change for every gig, or you have your sound?
It doesn't change for every gig. I used to tune, I think, a little more lower pitch than I do now as I'm getting older. It's coming up. I wouldn't say I tune in the bebop range. A friend of mine always says, "Oh, you just want to have like the Allman Brothers. You want to sound like that. You didn't know there were two guys there. You just want to sound like that." So, like I said, I'm a hybrid. I need something that's going to work within an acoustic situation, but then also be able to work within a more electric situation. And the thing that was very good about Sonar for me, at the time I got associated with them, I was playing with Mike Brecker's band, which was a lot of electricity going on in that band. So I still wanted to have the rich and the warmth that I have in my head from all the people I love, but I needed to have the ability to cut through a little bit more in a music that was splitting the worlds of electric, more fusion oriented, and jazz at the time, which was a lot of fun with that band.
That was a great band. I highly recommend those recordings.
Yeah, I was thrilled to be part of it.
Let's talk about some other elements of your career. You have a book, or was it a DVD? The Art of Playing with Brushes, that has all those great brush players. I'm sorry, I haven't seen it. Is it a book or a DVD?
It's
or both.
It's pretty much a 3 DVD set encompassing 7 hours of video.
All about brushes.
All about brushes.
So tell us what drummers were involved.
Well,
and that was your project too, right?
Basically, I was the instigator for this, and I was able to work with Hudson Music, and they recommended and brought on Steve Smith to work with me because Steve has had a lot of experience doing videos, and he's very fastidious with the whole process. So it was good to have him there with me. He was a great help. At the end of the day, we ended up having Joe Morello, Charlie Persip, Ben Riley, Billy Hart, Eddie Locke, Steve, and myself.
It's a great lineup. By the way, kids who are watching, you got to know who all those guys are. So look them up. But I need to see it because I haven't. But it's really an extensive foray into the world of brushes, which is considered a forgotten art these days.
Well, brushes can be utilized in any genre of music. I mean, you just don't have to look at that tool as something which is only utilized within the jazz idiom. It can be utilized for anything. You just have to have your creativity and an open mind and do what can be appropriate for the music. I mean, I always feel, what is the music telling me to play? And then at this point, people basically, they trust my judgment, I hope, and my intuition to come in and play something that's going to be appropriate. And brushes can be utilized in any genre. And the whole reason I did this was when you hear somebody play with sticks, you can basically ascertain what kind of motion is being utilized, what kind of sticking. It may not be exact, but you can get a vibe about what's happening. With brushes, because you're dealing within the circular lateral plane, you don't know. Is a guy going clockwise, counterclockwise? Are they going this way? Are they going this way? Are they going like this?
It looks almost to me like a shell game. You know the old shell game where you had a P under 3 things and the guy's doing this with the bada bing bada bing. So when you watch a guy, when you watch a guy with brushes, you're seeing all this magic shit, man, and you're like, what is that?
Right. Well, and the thing is, you don't know from a record.
Right.
What motion is being utilized to create those sounds. And I feel fortunate growing up 1 hour from New York City. From the time I was 15, I was going out and hearing music in clubs. And also the reality of the times, even growing up in my little town of Norwalk, Connecticut, any social event, restaurant, bar, party you went to, there was a band.
Exactly. We don't have that anymore.
DJs. So you had the chance as a young person to watch people do this and see what was going on. There was drummers up where I grew up. There was Nick Catrone was up there. There was Joe Corsello up there. I remember seeing this drummer, Bryce, when I was quite young. I heard a lot of very good drummers in the area, some whose names escape me right now.
But we don't have a lot of that anymore. It's hard to go out and hear bands with drummers.
Well, that's why jazz is now being taught in schools, because it's not being presented within the community anymore.
This is your host, Michael Nussbaum, and I'd like to thank our friends at Sabian Cymbals, Sound Synergies, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, and Drum Center of Portsmouth. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.